Whenever my grandfather came to visit, which was fairly often, every couple of months, he and I would walk to the theater. We saw probably every Western that they showed at the Cerrito Theater because I loved cowboys and Indians, and so did my grandpa.
The thing I can remember, not so much the movies as the serials that went on from week to week and continued.
We would go on Saturdays, especially because then we got to see the serials. And my favorite was to see Flash Gordon. It was special too when your parents were able to give you a nickel to buy popcorn.
The matinees were crazy, you know, there's popcorn flying all over the place, everybody talking at once. But so about 5 of us kids, we just would lie on the floor and watch the movie as if we were in our living room.
I always went at night, and I always went to musicals. I just love musicals.
Tuesday night was dish night, where they would entice people to come, and if you went enough, you got a set of dishes. And you know, one night you would get a plate, and another night you might get a cup or a saucer. And so those were special nights because after the war, a lot of people couldn't afford a lot of things.
Everybody wore these really wonderful uniforms. I don't know if they were blue or red and blue, I don't remember. Hats, they had the whole thing. I wanted to be, from that point on, I wanted to be an usher.
I started as an usherette, as we called them. And we had a very fanciful uniform. It was this kind of a gray, teal green, but we had little brass buttons, and the jackets were darker, and then the pants were very tight, but flowing out in the bell bottoms. And we always had a flashlight because you took people down the aisles and you showed them their seats. Then I became cashier, and that was, you had the box office out in front of the theater, as you still see in some of the old theaters. It was a small box office with just enough room for the cashier to be in, with small little shelves on the side where you had your money and your tickets. It was a very nice era, really.
The Cerrito Theater was very much a part of what El Cerrito was in the early days. There's just something about the decor of that theater that was so different from when I went to other shows later on in life.
That was quite a thing when the El Cerrito Theater was built. And it was beautifully decorated inside, with this Art Deco theme, and the seats were just beautiful.
Just look at those murals of those dancing nymphs. You know, look at just the shape, the unusual shape, and the paint job and those glass panels. They're just stupendous.
When you'd walk in the theater, there was this beautiful blue glass. And now that I've seen the pictures, I realize that was that beautiful etched glass mural.
It fascinated me. The blue glass that they had there was so pretty and so different and so unusual from something that a little girl has ever seen.
It was very cozy to me. It was just something about it. It was not a living room theater, but it wasn't like the Fox or the Paramount, which were huge cathedral-like places.
A lot of people say it's not the Paramount, okay? But it was a neighborhood theater. It wasn't a grand theater like the Paramount, but neighborhood theaters are actually even more rare, ones that are intact from that era.
We went through this little door and went into this huge open space that had, you know, this dome, and at the end, and there weren't any lights or anything, but at the end you could see this Art Deco mural that had gazelles and women.
I walked in and I was just astounded. I felt like I had entered a time capsule because everything was still there as if they had closed the door yesterday, except that the chairs were not there, but the artwork was there, all the paint around the ceilings was there, and I thought, I've got to get involved in this project.
Somebody told me that Kiefer's Furniture Store, if I went inside, I find something very special, an old, unused Art Deco movie house. So I went inside the warehouse where they stored their furniture, and that's what I found. Beautiful Art Deco murals, Art Deco art glass, etched glass mirrors. It was still painted to look like a theater. It still had a theater lobby. It was quite amazing. Now, I have a very strong interest in historic preservation and in history and in old buildings and architecture. And so I was always keeping in the back of my mind as someplace that was really special in El Cerrito. Meanwhile, I spoke to a guy I knew, Art Schroeder, who played a pretty good role in this. He was about 95 at the time, maybe 92. He was president of the El Cerrito Historical Society. I was a member of this group. I never went to the meetings. I said, Art, I'm interested in seeing what I could do to preserve the murals, etc., inside the theater. Is the El Cerrito Historical Society interested? He said, sure we are. I designate you our point person on this. I felt like it was me against the world, that it was just me in my house. I was trying to save this theater. All these things were happening to it. What chance did I have? It felt kind of hard to believe I would actually accomplish anything. Sometime around early November, I got the city manager, Scott Hannon, Jill Kymack, the community development director, I think her title was, and several other people from the city to go on a tour of the theater. And I believe that was the first time, for example, Scott had ever seen it. Well, Jill Kymack really got behind this, and she just thought it was a good idea. And her vision went even beyond mine in another way. She thought, well, why not reopen it as a movie house?
Because of our roles as planners and community development, we were also looking at something that would bring the community and give back to the community. As soon as it went to council, and as soon as the council was able to see it and visit the space, they were equally supportive of it.
What I first personally remember hearing is somebody telling me, hey, did you hear what's back there? The theater's still there. It was just absolutely incredible that it was still there and that it looked as good as it did.
The Friends of the Cerrito Theater formed, and there was this groundswell of support for it.
Some folks were a lot more interested in sort of the community building spirit of the whole thing, which is where I came in. Other people were strictly interested in the historical preservation of one of the few icons that the city might have to offer, and others were movie buffs and just were thrilled at the idea that there was going to be a movie house here.
We started bringing out supporters to city council meetings where the theater was going to be on the agenda. We succeeded in bringing over 100 people every time we tried, which I think is unheard of pretty much in El Cerrito's history, so that made an impression.
We took it to the agency, and the Friends of the Cerrito Theater showed up en masse, and again there was so much support for it, and the redevelopment agency, which is also the city council, was on board from the very beginning. So there was this balance of how do we save it, and how do we make it financially viable, and how do we give something back to the community. So then we called the Parkway Speakeasy in Oakland. So they came out and also fell in love with the space. So then we had a community event. We wanted to show this awe-inspiring space to the public.
There were approximately 3,000 people in a city of 21,000. That's over 10% showing up just on the notice of an open house.
You tell me when as many people showed up for anything in El Cerrito as that open house. This is a moment in time when people were looking back at historic theaters and historic buildings, seeing that they're valuable, they're not worth throwing away, and returning and recreating them.
You know, we're really coming to a new place in El Cerrito, and what I heard early on when people came to the theater is that we need to make El Cerrito a place.
It's a chance just to bring a really nice amenity to the community, which I think a lot of people will appreciate.
I think to do great things for El Cerrito, and it's going to be a lovely destination to go to. I'm really happy, and it's really brought back really great memories.
I think it's going to be a very positive part of the community, and I'm thrilled that we're able to bring something like this back.